Hi, Assalamualaikum. We are from Group 4. Today, I'm gonna explain to you how bribery affects economic growth and inequality. To start with, we have to know what bribery is. Bribery is a form of corruption that harms economic system and public trust. In Malaysia, it costs billions of ringgit each year, potentially up to 2% of the country's GDP. So the objectives of this analysis is to examine how bribery slows Malaysia's economy and explore how it worsens income inequality.
The bribery look how corruption hurts the economy. By definition, in Malaysia, MACC Act, bribery is the act of giving or taking gratification such as money, gift, or favor to influence a decision. So the problem is the decisions are no longer made based on who is the best, but on who paid the most. So how actually bribery kills economic growth? First, from productive to non-productive. Because instead of spending money on research, better machinery, or employee training, companies spend more money on bribes to secure contracts. Secondly, uncertainty. Bribery makes the market unpredictable. Honest investors avoid the country because they cannot win based on merit, which slow down the overall gross domestic product (GDP). Third, wasted resources because when a contract is awarded via a kickback rather than best bid, the project is often end up over budget or poor quality. This leads to wasting of the public funds. So why it creates inequality or the crony gap? So it is because of the deep pocket advantage, where only wealthy people or companies with the cable or connection can afford to play the game. Secondly, blocking talent. An honest, hardworking entrepreneur with a great product will lose to a crony who has relationship with a corrupt official. Last but not least, regressive impact. While the rich uh, get richer through exclusive lessons, ordinary citizens face higher prices and poorer public service.
Okay, next, Malaysia's case data and international perception. First, corruption perception and experience. On 2024 Corruption Perception Index (CPI), Malaysia has scored 50 over 100, that make our country in ranking 57 out of 180 countries. From that data, 50% of Malaysian firms reported losing contract because they didn't pay bribes. Second, cost of corruption in Malaysia. A total of 277 billion ringgit lost over 5 years from 2018 until 2023. This amount to an average of about 46 billion per year. The 277 billion ringgit loss in equivalent to nearly the combined GDP, which is gross domestic product of major Malaysian states like Johor and Penang. Most contributed to corruption are abuse of government procurement and tenders. Next, we move to corporate liability under Section 17A of the Malaysia Anti-Corruption Commission. What is Section 17A? Section 17A is a commercial organization that can be held legally responsible if a person associated with it commits bribery for the organization's benefits. It also introduced corporate criminal liability for corruption. Why Section 17A matters? First, it focuses on private sector. Section 17A recognizes that corruption is not only a public sector problem. Many bribery cases involve companies offering bribes to gain unfair advantages. So this law will shift responsibility to business to active prevent corruption, not just deny involvement. Next, Section 17A also changing corporate culture that will promote ethical business practice and avoid risky agent and intermediaries. And lastly, it also aligned with international standards like the UK Bribery Act and the US Foreign Corrupt Practice Act (FCPA). By holding corporation accountable, Section 17A aims to reduce procurement corruption, a major contributor to losses like the 277 billion estimated corruption costs. It also discouraged inflated contract, kickbacks, and collusion between businesses and officials.
So, the impacts on economic growth. The first one is invisible tax on the nation. Bribery acts as invisible tax that increases the cost of doing business. In Malaysia, the MACC estimated that corruption robbed the country of approximately 277 billion ringgit between 2018 and 2023, which is an average of 46 billion ringgit annually. So the second impact on economic growth is inefficient public procurement. So when a contract is awarded based on bribe rather than merit, the quality of the project suffers while the cost balloons. So as seen in the Port Klang Free Zone PKFZ case, the costs ballooned from an initial estimate of 1.8 billion ringgit to over 12 billion ringgit. So the last impact on economic growth is deterring high-quality investors. High-value foreign investors from countries with strict anti-bribery laws like the US or the EU, Europe, will avoid Malaysia if they feel they cannot compete on a level playing field.
So next, we are going to discuss about the social toll. So the poor tax involves with small bribes for permits or faster services that take a bigger share of income from low-wage earners. So poor individuals end up paying to access services that they are actually legally entitled to get it. Next, elite capture. Large-scale corruption benefits powerful individuals and companies, so public money is used to grant monopolies, resources license, or bail out to political elites. This results in wealth being transferred from the public community to a small connected group such as elite people. Lastly, erosion of social mobility. Access to education, jobs, and business loans depends on connections or payments rather than merit. This limits opportunities for the poor to improve their lives through education or entrepreneurship.
So now moving on to the channel of impact. The first one is that bribery increases the legal and financial risk for private firms. The firm involved in bribery will face fines, lawsuit, and possible blacklisting, which increases uncertainty in business operation. The second one is that it will reduce investment. Investors avoid a corrupt environment due to fear of losses and unstable regulation, lowering domestic and foreign investment. So for the third one is that it will cause higher costs of doing businesses. The bribe will act as an unofficial tax, reducing funds and available for innovation, expansion, and also job creation. Okay, so moving on for the fourth point is that the bribe will cause unfair advantage to large firms. It is because these big companies can afford bribes and legal protection, while the SMEs are excluded from the markets. So for the fifth point is that it will cause unequal access to the opportunities. The business success depends on the connection rather than merit, limiting for fair competition. So for the last point is that it will cause loss of public trust. The weak enforcement against private firms reduces the confidence in institution and also markets.
Next, we move to solution and path to integrity. After we understanding how Burberry damaged economic growth and worsen income inequality, so the most important question now is what can be done to address this problem. First, strengthening institution is essential. Anti-corruption law must be enforced consistently without political interference. An independent judiciary and strong enforcement agency ensure that no individual is above the law, regardless of status of power. Second, increasing transparency. Increasing transparency helps reduce opportunity for bribery. Open government data, transparent public procurement process, and digital system reduce human discretion and limit corrupt practice. When information is accessible, accountability is improved. Third, the practice sector play a critical role. Company must adopt strong corporate governance, internal control, and zero-tolerance policy towards bribery. Ethical business practice ethical business practice create fair competition and support sustainable economic growth. So for the fourth one, public participation and media freedom are vital. A free press protect whistleblower and active civil society organization. It helps expose corruption and pressure institutions to act. Criticism oversight strengthen democratic accountability. Finally, education and culture change. Education and culture change are long-term solution, promoting integrity, ethics, and anti-corruption value from school to workplace. This helps build a society that rejects bribery as unacceptable behavior. In conclusion, combating bribery requires a collective effort from government, business, and citizens. Only through integrity, transparency, and accountability can we achieve sustainable economic growth and reduce income inequality.
Institutional weakness and governance. The root of bribery is weak law, enforcement and oversight mechanism, lack of transparency in public administration, selective enforcement of laws, and lastly, poor accountability of public officials. Next, for governance failure and decision-making discussion, it is started by policies influenced by personal gain, not public interest, public procurement driven by bribes, inefficient allocation of resources, and it will lead to reduced quality of public services.
In recap, bribery is not a grease for the system. It is sand in the gears that slows economic growth and worsen inequality in Malaysia. Combating corruption is therefore not just a moral imperative, but a fundamental economic policy necessary for Malaysia to achieve high income, developed status with shared prosperity for all citizens. I encourage everyone to support transparency in initiative and demands accountability, because each of us has a role in building a fairer, stronger nation.